And it looks like we have about 20 or so participants, so we'll go ahead and get started. Well, it looks like David Hasmin, who is our translator interpreter from the Welcome Center, has logged off and back on. So thank you, David, and I see Leonore as well for being here tonight. We have some other folks that I'd like to introduce as we get started, and I will start off with Melissa Goff, Superintendent.
Hi there, welcome tonight. Glad to see you here. Yes, I'm Melissa, Superintendent. It is pouring rain outside my window and large branches are falling in my backyard that I can hear breaking off. So if I happen to zip out of the window, it is simply because I want to make sure nothing fell on anything important. So glad to see you here tonight.
Next, I'd just like to introduce Carrie Tatum, who's our secondary director. And Carrie, if you'll just let us know, I know we have some secondary high school principals on with us tonight. If you could just introduce folks, that would be great. And then actually right before that, Carrie, David, if you wanted to just welcome folks and see if we had the need tonight for interpretation or translation, that would be great.
Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por estar conectados. Vamos a comenzar. Antes de que se sigan presentando el demás personal, queremos darle una bienvenida a todos y queremos preguntar si hay alguien que ocupe los servicios de interpretación. Estamos aquí para ayudarles con eso. Si por favor nos lo dejan saber haciendo un comentario en lo que es el chat, así podríamos brindar ese servicio. De lo contrario, la junta continuará en inglés. Entonces, en este momento aprovechamos si hay alguien que ocupe los servicios de interpretación. Si nos deja saber, por favor, pueden hacer comentarios y así los estaremos, traduciendo y compartiendo con el demás personal. Gracias.
And I have all three high school principals here tonight. I have Mark Hannon. Please wave or say hi really quick so people can see you.
Hi, everyone.
And John Hunter.
Hi there, good evening.
And Susie Orsborn.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Carrie. And we also have our Director of Special Programs with us tonight, Ryan Mattingly.
Welcome, everybody.
And then when I look at just the rest of the folks who we have here tonight, you know, I'm chuckling a little bit. I see a lot of familiar names from district folks. So our communications director, Andrew Tomsky, is on the call and he's helping manage the chat. We also have Rachel Smith, who is just has been phenomenal as our main kind of district nurse. And she has a new title that I'm not going to get right tonight, but has coordinated kind of all of our plans and prevention plans and blueprints and with county health and Oregon Health Authority. And so I see her on tonight. I see some assistant principals, I see some coaches, instructional coaches, and I also see a board member. So if you are one of the other few who are on the call with us tonight, there are only about maybe 4 or 5 of you. And so my goodness, you have us at your disposal. So please feel free to type questions in the chat. And the purpose of tonight really is to be able to be available to listen to concerns that folks have, and really is a resource to answer questions that people might have as well. I think we even might have a student on tonight that I think I know. So a big hello and good job to Tiger if that is you. Glad to see you on tonight. And then we'll just continue to monitor the chat and be able to answer questions as they come.
So for those of you who haven't been on these calls before, we will fill the time a little bit if you guys aren't asking questions, but the chat really is our primary way of making sure that we get all of your questions answered. So we see a question about how distance learning is affecting the construction at the high school. Great question. We really have not talked about that. So this is especially at West. And might it be done sooner than planned? And I think that Principal Osborne sees this most frequently out of all of us and could probably give us the very best answer. I will say it's on schedule. And Susie, you want to go ahead?
So the construction is going on as planned. I would like to say that it might be done sooner than planned, but that's not true. And we're hoping for the end of January, but it could be more like March. But it's going along great and it's going to be fantastic. Thanks for asking.
So the comprehensive distance learning hasn't adversely impacted any of the construction happening, but construction being construction, there's lots of steps and it's a slower process. So we'll be super excited to have that wrapped up and have just a new facility and a new building for all of our kiddos. I guess, Melissa, I don't know if you have any updates. There have kind of been 3 themes that I've seen on our Facebook group and questions that we have been getting in. And one of the things that I've seen kind of over and over is the question around kiddos being kind of back in person, like when can kids come back? And I know in the superintendent update that went out to families yesterday, explained what some of those metrics were this past week and what that looks like. And we've just been continuing to remind folks, community and families that our county metrics for both Benton County and Lynn County will really dictate our ability to bring students back into the building. And a reminder that for grades 4 through 12, so all middle school, all high school, that's really dependent on the number of cases in each county, Benton and Lynn County, and the positivity rate. I believe that's 10 or fewer in each county for 3 consecutive weeks. And since I would want to say June, perhaps maybe even before that, we have been nowhere close to 10 really, and have yet to meet that metric once. And so in terms of grades 4 through 12, we're really very concerned about our ability to meet those metrics. And that is true for the entire state. That's not just, those aren't just metrics for just us. But we also know that the community plays a big role in that, in our ability to control the spread of COVID-19 so that we can get kids back to school.
What we're asking community to just be sure to do is encourage each other to wear masks. When you're around folks who don't live in your own household, please wear masks out of safety. Please make sure you're socially distancing, and please make sure you're practicing good hand hygiene. That will, of course, continue after we bring students back. We anticipate, we hope we'll bring them back before those precautionary steps are no longer needed. But they're certainly needed in order to get kids back in school at all. And so as much as you can do to help us, we just super appreciate it. We want your kids back in school. This is not normal for them or for us to be this far apart right now. So thank you for that. We have a question, Carrie, I'm going to ask you to answer about whether or not the high school schedule changing, may that be changing?
The question is, my student heard the schedule may change, the daily schedule.
Okay, so we are currently looking at that, but we want to make sure that we communicate with all of our stakeholders. And so we have sent the information to the union, and we're hoping to make a decision on that tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm. So there's been some discussion about elongating some breaks in between classes and also lunch. And so there will be further discussion definitely tomorrow to just look at what that means, what the impact is. And so I see a follow-up question from Tiger saying, we received a message about an updated schedule for South, but then was told to ignore it. Our schedule is getting a review. The class length is a bit long. And he says the last 10 to 20 minutes is rough. Lunch also needs extended. Many older students are in charge of younger siblings, and 35 minutes may not be enough time to help and to get lunches. So thank you for that. We have another question. It says, my high schoolers have been assigned YouTube videos to watch for class. The Chromebooks will sometimes tell them that the videos are restricted. What should they do in this situation?
I think what you should do in that situation is first contact the teacher. If that's an entire class issue, it may be our filtering system would block the entire thing. If it's just you when you contact the teacher, then what you'll want to do is have your teacher email myself or GAPS IT, and we will get that addressed.
And I would just add that make sure that your student, during the time that they're trying to get onto the YouTube channel, is logged in with their GAPS email address, because we can unlock accounts under just our student email addresses that may not be unlocked generally for the Chromebooks and other areas. So be aware of that as well.
I wanted to check in with David or Leonore to just see if you wanted to check in. I see Leonore has in the chat.
Thank you, Lisa. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Como mencionamos anteriormente, gracias por conectarse, gracias por reunirse a esta junta. Si hay alguien que ocupe los servicios de interpretación, con mucho gusto estamos aquí para interpretar. Por favor, nada más nos lo dejan saber. Pueden dejarnos saber a base de los comentarios por chat, o si nos puede dejar saber indicando, quitando el micrófono, prendiendo el micrófono. Y así nos avisan. Con mucho gusto brindaremos ese servicio. Gracias.
Thanks, David. The other thing I think might be interesting, and to put our poor principals on the spot, I think it might be nice to hear from principals how things are going kind of this first week and a half. I guess we're, a week and a half in so far, and just a little bit about what's happening at your each of your sites or each of your schools. I think folks would be interested to know from your perspective, and just to know about some exciting things that are happening in each of your places. So I will let you all duke it out in terms of who wants to go first. How about that?
I'll jump in.
Great, thank you, Mark. AOS.
We are meeting daily with our kids, and Wednesday is our Rocks Day, and we started that the first time today, and we're going to continue that throughout the 6 weeks, and then we'll switch courses after the 6 weeks are over. Teachers have informed me that, and I've been following up, that attendance is better than I was anticipating, and that was encouraging. There's been some frustration, obviously, with the technology, but the teachers are being patient. They understand that it's going to take a little bit of time for systems to talk to each other, and we're just waiting through this first 6 weeks. I heard a lot of comments today that this week was much better than last week, and every day it's getting better. The students are settling in, and I'm cautiously optimistic that once we get the technology all worked out, that we're going to be able to provide a quality education, not to the level of face-to-face, but we're going to get it as close as possible, and our students are responding, and but we're excited to think about the possibility of getting kids back on campus.
That's great. Thank you, Mark.
I can follow. I would echo what Mark said. It's for sure that we've had staff and students who are frustrated with technology issues, but I can say that it's getting better every day. And I will say the same thing that he did. we're gonna do this as well as we possibly can. And our students have been amazing and gracious, and our staff has worked so hard. And I too would echo Mr. Hannon that I would look forward to being back face to face, but while we're not face to face, we're going to do everything possible to make it so that each and every student has a good experience.
That's great. Thank you, Susie. And John Hunter, South Albany.
Thank you. It has been a great start for us as far as people are giving it their best efforts. And what has been kind of fun about it is staff and students are learning together, which is obviously much different. A lot of the teachers are stating they kind of feel like first-year teachers kind of trying to dig in and learn. And I think that that has made some fun and some hardship at the same time. But we have some great, enthusiastic people that are working incredibly hard. I think, just like Mark and Susie said, to wanting to deliver the best quality instruction they can. And so we're excited for that. We're also excited to start exploring, as we learn Canvas and our teachers get going, how we can do some things that involve students with leadership and with activities, and maybe it's virtual, but how do we get students involved in those kind of activities as well, to be part of the school and bring a little climate and culture to what you consider the virtual world. The hardest thing for me, and I think Mark, we would both agree, that coming in new buildings where we have not been able to meet many of our kids because we're both new principals, and I've had students reach out to me, and it's been really neat. But I look so forward to meeting those kids as well, because that's been tough to talk to them and listen to them, but not know them in person. But I'm really proud of the staff and the work they're doing. And I would echo what Mark and Susie said, our attendance, comparing, I was at a different school, but spring to now with students engaged in attendance is worlds different. I see much more students engaged and teachers as well in the process. So, so thank you.
Thank you. That's great to hear. I'm going to hand this next one over to Carrie. Question about Canvas has several steps to submit some assignments like essays or other written work. Is there any way to make this an easier process?
So this actually came through in our Facebook chat as well. And so I have escalated this to Dan Rothwell, who is in charge of Canvas. And so he's trying to find something that may support this. If we do, we will send that out in communication to parents and students. So we're a few steps ahead of you guys. And so we're trying our best to support everybody in this process.
And Tiger, I love that you're asking about how to submit your assignments. So good job. I will say, just as the parent of a high schooler myself, one of the things that I guess I didn't realize is as much from the spring and even the summer, but he has just become reanimated. Right? In just being able to see his friends, even though it's over the computer, or go to class, and he'll say, oh, I would rather be there in person, but being able to see and talk to his teachers, and he has just come to life again. And it's really interesting. We've heard a lot more saxophone playing in our house throughout the day, which is always funny, being in here on meetings, and you only hear one instrument, just the one they're playing. So it is kind of funny. I can recognize the songs and the music, and but it has just from a mom's perspective, it just like makes my mom heart feel really good to see him just so excited to just see and reconnect with his teachers and with his friends. So not ideal, and he would be the first to tell you he would prefer to go to school. But I've just been so glad that he's been able to reconnect with his teachers and his friends and things that he loves, right? which Plain Instruments is one of them. So that has been really, really helpful. We have another question. Is there a way to turn off the graded email that goes to the Gmail? Oh, my student tends to get overwhelmed with the mass amount of emails. And so I think that that is probably the automated email that gets sent from when they turn in assignments or from Canvas. Carrie, do you know?
No, can you explain it a little bit better? I'm so sorry. In the chat, and then we'll come back to that.
We will wait and see if we can get a little bit more information about that. We have another question from Jen. The 10 cases per 100,000 metric seems unattainable, even when people are following guidelines to the best of our ability. This is discouraging. Can you offer any perspective on that? I can try, and I can have Melissa follow up too. So just know that the metrics of the 10 cases per 100,000, and then there's a second one, which is a test positivity rate of below 5%, are set by, in conjunction with the Oregon Health Authority and ODE for opening schools. So those are set kind of at the state level, but they're set by county. So that they said, okay, if a county meets this for 3 consecutive weeks, then they can have students in grades 4 through 12 come back. And so different counties might hit that at different times. For us, because we are a school district that straddles 2 counties, that has to be true in both Benton County and Lynn County. And we haven't met 1 week yet, let alone 3 consecutive weeks. So it's hard because that does seem farther off than we would have hoped, even in June. Do you want to offer any perspective, Melissa?
Yeah, I'll just add, it is difficult when we haven't seen very many weeks where our numbers are far below 20, actually, especially in both counties at the same time. And that's within our region. There are other areas within the state whose numbers are looking better. Now, some of that just geographically, people are situated further apart, which of course is helpful because people aren't intermingling as much. But in other areas, there seems to be differences in the numbers just because people are adhering to those 3 precautions at different levels within communities. So we are really trying to encourage everyone to do what we know we can do, and recognizing that it's not going nearly fast enough for any of us, but that as we let kind of our foot off the gas, then we're seeing these numbers get bigger. And we know that the wildfires and the opening of Oregon State both influence numbers within Benton and Lynn counties during this last week. And so it's not terribly surprising to see the numbers have gone up this last week. ODE is taking a look at what influence those 2 events may have had on the data. That being said, we still aren't approaching the 10. And so really being strict about how we implement those rules is really the best way to go. And I can say in both counties, I see every day people without masks on. And not just in our counties. I was just in Lane County today, moving my daughter into her apartment at University of Oregon, and many of the students moving in on the floor and many of their parents weren't wearing masks. And I think we may have had a little mask saturation for a bit, and now people are needing to go back to remembering the import of face coverings and that barrier being the most important barrier that we can do, aside from just genuine attention to keeping your hands sanitized and the social distancing. So that's really the best that I can give. We are continuing to monitor, and we'll continue to watch any new information that comes out of the CDC or the Oregon Health Authority regarding other steps that we can take within our system. And we'll continue to share that with you as well. and kind of repeat on a loop, because that's the best tool we have right now, is communicating with you all. So you'll actually see a public service announcement that we're working on in conjunction with Lynn County and Sweet Home School District, Lebanon School District, the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, focusing on putting into place these 3 precautions to try and help our community get those numbers turned around. I did see that we had a little bit more information about
We did. And
Canvas.
this is a perfect example of what I love about this community and what I've seen kind of over and over. So Melissa, thank you. The other Melissa gave a little bit of more detail about the question that she had. And she said every assignment gets an email once it's graded by the teacher. And so it's overwhelming to her student. And then before we even get a chance to answer it, other folks have jumped in because they have experienced something similar and knew kind of how they might fix it. So thank you, Carol. She said the settings in Canvas can be set to what you're notified for and how often you get those notifications. And then Jen also jumped in and said, I got an overwhelming amount of email from Canvas as a parent observer, and I was able to modify email preferences in my Canvas account. And so she would think that students could modify that as well, and that is correct. But honestly, a perfect example of what I have seen over the last few weeks and what I know about this community, not only when it comes to school and technology, but when it came to crisis situations and evacuations and the fires, people just readily jumping in with information or in any way that they're able to help. So this was a perfect example of just what I've experienced in the last few weeks from this community. And I think what is so very best and great about our community is just this. So thank you, all of you, for that.
Hey, Tiger, I can answer your questions. So I think we as a district have not been great about sending emails actually to the student accounts. So you didn't receive notification about these parent forums because they were sent only to the guardians, only those folks who are listed as guardians. And there was intentionality around that for a time period as well, because we really wanted to make sure that parents could ask questions that they might not feel as comfortable asking if students were on the call, because sometimes parents, particularly at the beginning of COVID, had a lot of concerns about how this was impacting their own children and things that they could do to support their kids. So I think that calling these parent and student forums as we move forward and making sure that students are aware would be a really nice direction for us to go. So we'll be sure to add students to the invite list so that you're aware.
Great point, great question.
I could just add to that real quick. So the way School Messenger works is we get contacts from school registration. So when we send messages out, they're going just to those contacts, and it doesn't include the students. So we tend to rely more on the individual schools to share the information. But yeah, I think what Melissa said, we can definitely look at a way to make sure those messages are going to students directly from the district as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't see any other questions. We have about 31 folks in the call, over half of which are staff. And so Melissa, I don't know, part of me is feeling like I will stay and have Andrew stay and Carrie stay just for the length of the call. We'll end it about 5 minutes before the hour, just to give those of us who are on all 3 of these a little bit of a bio break before the next starts. But I wonder about, after too long, cutting staff loose, and then the 3 of us can stay if other folks join. So Sean asks, is it too late to switch to Albany Online if the virtual option is not working well for one of my children? Sean, great question. I would have to ask probably more questions to be able to answer that really well. And here's what I would say. Right now, for Albany Online, we and other folks who use Fuel Ed, which is the company that we use for the curriculum and the software and all of that, are waiting for more sections to open up because it's actually full statewide. And so it is more easily done right now for elementary and middle school than it would be for high school. And the reason I say that is because we know in high school, that credits are awarded for classes and the timing of those things is a little bit different. And so I would want to ask more questions about the grade of your student and what that looks like, because what I wouldn't want to do is set a high schooler up in a situation where we're just doing quarters and they're halfway through a quarter in one system and halfway through a quarter in another system and don't have enough time to complete the work to be able to get credits, because their classes are for credits for graduation right now. And we know that that's important. So we also know that in working with Fuel Ed and having communication actually with them last week and this week, that we expect those sections to open up hopefully by tomorrow, if not by Friday. But we know that the switching from one to another, there's a delay in terms of enrollment of at least a few days. And so the grade of the child would make a difference in terms of probably my recommendation.
And so, Lisa, with that, I am going to take you up on that offer and offer staff the opportunity to log off. If Lisa and Carrie and Andrew, if you guys can see this one through, and I think probably stopping at 10 till is will
Safe.
allow for enough time for questions and give you guys a little bit more of a break and maybe some time to grab a little food before we're back on at 6. So Andrew, I'll see you a little bit before 6. And thanks, you guys.
Great.
Hi, team. Thank you.
Hi, Jen. We know that this is kind of an early time frame for high school parents, but one of the things that we have been intentional about is rotating so that we're able to be equitable to all of our levels. So I believe last time high school was at 7 o'clock, and then the time before that we were at 6 o'clock. So that was intentional, and we do understand that that can be a little bit of a burden.
Having the 3 levels and trying to not go too late into the night, but I think you may be right. It's a bit early for folks.
Yeah, we've actually had each of the levels at each time. So with today's, now all 3 levels will be at 5, all 3 at 6, and all 3 at 7. So trying to mix it up that way.
So there are a few folks who I see are new, who have come in through the waiting room. So just so you know, this is really just a question and answer, a time for you to share your concerns or ask questions of staff in the district. And to do so, just go ahead and hop on the chat, which you'll find at the bottom center of your screen. And you can just type in any question that you might have, and we will get to it as it comes up. So yeah, thank you, Carol, and thank you, Jen. Sonia, thank you. Glad to hear it. She says, high school has been going well for my 2 kiddos. So thank you for your hard work. We appreciate it. We know that teachers are working so hard right now, getting kind of all of their lessons and content onto digital platforms, as well as learning them at the same time. So really appreciate it. Yeah, so a question and comment says, I popped on a little late, but my 10th grader showed me an email with schedule changes next week. Is that happening? So we talked about that a little earlier, but the high school, we kind of got ahead of ourselves a little bit. The high school administrators had proposed a schedule change for high schoolers, and that got to the district office yesterday. And so we have a little bit of work to do in terms of making sure that that will work out for instructional time and for other things. We know that the intent of that schedule change was to extend lunch and extend 2 of the breaks during the day. There were 15-minute breaks and extending them to 30-minute breaks. Some of the feedback that we've heard from students and from parents is that older kiddos oftentimes are helping younger siblings either with work or with lunch breaks and things like that. and a 35-minute lunch break wasn't long enough to be able to either get to a school lunch site that's serving or be able to get lunch for your siblings and yourself and make sure everybody is back on. And so needing more time during the day for students to be able to do that would be helpful. The result would mean that there would be, the classes would be about 15 minutes shorter in length. And so that is a discussion and a decision that we anticipate will happen on Thursday, with communication going out on Friday regarding whether that schedule change will happen. So thank you for that question. All right. Don't be shy if there are any questions. Now is your chance. I think we've got we still have probably about 6 or 7 staff on the call ready for all of your questions. Oh, good. Sean, follow up. Who would I contact to transfer to AOL? And so, yeah, the contact information, I would tell you to, if you email, I'm going to put it in the chat, Sean, who you would email about that, so that you can email and they can give you a call to figure out what that might look like and what the delay might be in terms of just enrollment. There might be a day or 2 delay. Actually, Carrie, will you put John Dilbone's email in the chat for me? Thanks. My multitasking skills are lagging this evening. And then just a comment around, it would be great to have lunch breaks to have been the same across the levels. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we were trying to figure out and is a little bit tough because just of the length of the high school classes and where they fall being just much different than the other levels. Thanks, Carrie, for that. So Sean, in the chat is an email. And if you email John, tomorrow he can help you navigate that. So you have that contact. The one thing I will say that's a little bit different about AOL is that it's very much self-paced. So it works best for students who are really kind of self-disciplined or kind of motivated, can kind of follow along, do their work. For younger students, it requires much more parent support, because it really is truly a completely kind of online curriculum and program. And so it's what you would expect to see for kind of virtual online charters. In fact, it's the same kind of curriculum and company that most of them use. So it's very much a self-driven, self-paced. And so I have 2 kiddos. It would have worked pretty well for one, and it would not have worked for the other, just based on how they are as students and how they are as learners and how they are in terms of like self-discipline and maintaining kind of their own schedule. And so really it depends on your kiddo and kind of what their learning style and self kind of management style and capacity are. Okay. So I don't know. It says Washko's iPhone, or Jen, or Christina, or Sean. If you have any questions, Saida, Tiger, anything you've always wanted to ask or know. Oh, Christina, thank you for that. She says, thank you to all the teachers for getting the year started. I would like to know why teachers are not teaching from classroom, or so they have all their supplies and resources if they're working from home. I noticed a few interruptions. It's a great question. So teachers have the option of either working from their classroom or working from home. And those are pretty individualized decisions for teachers. Some, depending on their own situations, it's easier and a better fit for them to work from home, and some kind of it's better if they're at school in their classroom. And so we've let teachers make that decision based on their set up in terms of internet and connectivity at home based on their own situation, whether they're in a high-risk category or not, and their own exposure. And so we have some teachers that have chosen to go to their classrooms and some that haven't, and then some, frankly, that do on certain days and don't on other days. And so, yeah, that's a decision that we have let teachers make for their own situation and kind of what's best for them. And so far, I think by and large, it's really worked out. To be honest too, I think it helps, although I know our bandwidth has grown and our capacity and will continue to grow, but it actually is helpful to have some teachers at home on the internet, as opposed to everybody on the school's Wi-Fi all at the same time. And so I'm hoping that those interruptions will iron out. Although I know from home comes with its own risks. I'm at home right now, and I know I have children outside of this room that know I'm on a meeting and can be heard, but it is a little scary at any point to know whether or not they'll remember and either not come barging in or holler at their sister down the hall because they want and or need something. So the juggling is real for everybody. Okay, well, it is about 5:43, and I think I am going to call the high school session. And so for those of you who are wanting to stay or to come back for the middle school session, what we'll do is we will stay on the call and I will just mute myself and I will just turn off my camera and we will take a break. And then we will come back at 6 o'clock for the middle school session. And then, is it elementary and then middle school? Yeah. So we'll come back at 6 for the elementary and then we'll do the same thing. And then we'll have middle school at the 7 o'clock session. So thank you for all of you, especially because we knew this was an early session, for coming. Thank you for hanging in there with your students and with their teachers. I know everybody is working so hard. And that really this situation is a burden on everyone, and just really appreciate everybody's kind of support and patience and persistence in just kind of working through this with us. So thank you, and we will see those of you who are interested in elementary back here at 6.